Excellent. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from down under Brisbane, Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you on board, and I think we have people from different parts of the world, such as India, South Africa, UAE, Canada, USA, Australia, and I welcome each one of you into the session today. We actually are powerful with a lady all the way from Malaysia, Datin Anusha. Now, before I introduce Datin, let me just talk a little bit about what this whole program is and why we initiated this program, such that you could get a feel for where we're going. As a peak performer coach and a keynote speaker, I have had the privilege of working over the last 3 decades with close to 250,000 participants across the globe. And one of the key things I found working with them was they have come back numerous times saying, hey, David, I need to sharpen my skills in certain areas. And in particular, I need to look at getting a role model, at least virtually, so we can copy, paste them in their models and in their behavior patterns. So I put my thoughts together and was able to bring this through 10 News. Here is the start of our sessions that we're going to conduct over the next year. And this particular session, we are hosting with Anusha, Datin Anusha, all the way from Malaysia originally. Interesting enough, Anusha and I go back some time. We came from the same hometown in Malaysia, and at the same time, we also were in sister schools. She was in a convent, and I was in a De La Salle school. But we never met one another until about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was in an airport lounge flying back to Kuala Lumpur, and in walks this lady, well-dressed, with cashew nuts in her hand, and she says, would you like a cashew nut? And I said, yes, and that's the start of a relationship 4 years ago. It's amazing how you build networks around the globe. Before I bring Datin Anusha on board, let me just casually mention the background of Datin, so you can have a feel for who we are having on this platform. Datin Anusha is a global leader, a Soroptimist International barrister, and a UN policy influencer, social economic reformer, world leader in people empowerment, women empowerment in particular, across all nations. This lady has done so much in the last 3 decades for people empowerment, and particularly women empowerment. The list keeps going on and on and on. I will stop there and I'll introduce and allow Datin to come in and talk about her story first before we deep dive into certain concepts. Datin Anusha, thank you very much for coming on stage.
Just call me Anusha, and the title is Dato actually, because it's a title from.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay, don't worry. Just call me Anusha, my first name.
That's fine. I will do that.
Yeah, well, you could call me a champion of the underdog, because I spent most of my life doing that. Yeah, I started my career as a lawyer, barrister at law from the UK, specializing in corporate mergers, takeovers, and acquisitions. So basically, I represented big business, and then I went into a career in investment banking, where most of my role was really regulatory reform, making sure that we had very strong financial markets, a very disciplined securities market, well regulated. And I spent a lot of time on law reform, making sure that the laws serve not just big business, but also the common investor. And then I came out and started my own practice as in pioneer in investor relations in Malaysia. And over the years, I specialized mainly in corporate governance and sustainable practices. And then I also developed a career towards volunteerism, working through various civil society organizations, intergovernmental agencies, right up to United Nations. But all the while conscious that one must leave the planet a better place. One must do things that enrich the people, that empower those who are voiceless, that raise up not just people's hopes and realize people's dreams, but also nurture their spirits. And that if you are to do anything long-lasting, it means managing relationships and bringing people along in your journey. It's actually easier to manage machines than it is to manage human beings. So I think I spend most of my career really in managing relationships, and
Right.
that's where the greatest challenge and the greatest rewards are, David, as you know,
Yes.
as an award-winning mentor and coach yourself. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. It's great. It's great to sort of see that aspect of you coming through, and the feel factor in particular. Doesn't matter. A lot of leaders who have actually climbed the ladder, they lose sight of the grassroots, and you have not done that. You know, because your hands-on approach. Now, before I drill down into that, I would like to get an idea of what are some of the key global strategies that you have thought of. I mean, let's pick three of them. I know there's numerous. Just select three that you were passionate about.
Okay. There's so much, as you say, but I think our lives are always about defining moments.
Yes.
And I will talk about a defining moment in 2013 when I was at the United Nations, and I had an opportunity to speak at the UN General Assembly when it was the annual summit on the Commission on Status of Women. And I was speaking on behalf of all the large women's organizations, not just Soroptimist International, the one that I was representing. And the issue was really to end femicide and female infanticide. You know how widespread it is around the world? Femicide is intentional killing of women and females on the grounds of things like dowry related. You know, this is an Indian audience predominantly, so you know about dowry killings. You know about honor killings, where if you are going with someone from a different community, they actually hire hitmen to kill you. They actually made a movie out of it in Canada. You know, and then there are things like killing women on the grounds of witchcraft. I mean, there was a sensational case of an international journalist who was actually carrying out education and empowerment of women in villages in Papua New Guinea. And because the women became so, bold and empowered that they could stand up to their partners who were perpetrators of domestic violence, the men said that the women were possessed, that how come they were suddenly so strong. So she was actually burnt at the stakes, and we had to write to the Attorney General and Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea and bring it to the attention of the government. The same thing like that infamous rape and killing on the Delhi bus of this girl way back. And, we had to intervene by writing to the Chief Justices of the Supreme Court, the Attorney General in India, right up to the time Sonia Gandhi, leader of the Congress Party, when we said, look, this is ridiculous. We have to do something about it. So at that year, we actually got all the governments to agree to change all their laws in their respective countries to declare all these forms of killing as illegal and to have harsh penalties, to work with the health authorities and the police to actually take proactive action, intervention work and things. So that was one very big thing worldwide that resonated worldwide to end femicide. The second major global strategy was investor education. I've always been very concerned about stock market crashes, about Ponzi schemes, all these chit funds and, all these get rich quick schemes where people's life savings are all burnt up. And so I felt it's very important, whilst you work with very big corporations who are listed on the stock exchange, one needs to have global coordinated action on corporate governance, on accountability, transparency, and disclosure of corporate information in a timely manner, so that the average person who is investing through their pension funds or through their own life savings should know all the intimate details of what's happening in a corporation before they put their money into it. So
Mm-hmm.
we worked with authorities around the world, with stock exchanges, with securities commissions, to
Right.
make sure that we really have a concerted program for invested education. This is a ripple effect around the world, and I have been at the epicenter of it. During the 1990s and the early 2000s, when markets were becoming very sophisticated, way
Yes.
ahead of people's ordinary citizens' capacity. That was at a corporate level. Now, the third one, very close to my heart, is to work with farmers. You would be
Oh,
surprised. You think, what is this corporate
goodness.
investment banker person working with farmers? But again, it was my relationship with the United Nations and speaking at the UN that got me going about how the situation of farmers has been taken for granted. I mean, when you consider that, um, you know, 65% of the world's food are produced by women farmers. Did you know that, David?
No.
I didn't even know that. Now, if 65% of the world's food are produced by women farmers, and yet 70% of the world's poorest people who live on who earn less than $2 a day are women farmers, will you be
God.
shocked? Something's wrong somewhere. Now, every time
Yeah.
I drink my Starbucks coffee, I'll remember that and think about fair trade and whether these coffee bean producers are actually getting what they should be paid for their
Yeah.
produce. So what is important is to ensure, first of all, that women own land. I think in India as well, it's a problem in Africa. Women can be for generations farming a land and still not be the owners. Women
Mm-hmm.
want access to ownership of land. They want access to finance, access to seeds, fertilizer, equipment. So again, a global strategy was to work with not just the FAO and United Nations Environmental Program, but also to work with governments, with foundations, with banks, ensuring microcredit is available to women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the day women are liberated, financially liberated, their farms will be more modernized and sophisticated. And that actually helps the global food production and food security. It is common sense, David. So,
Yeah, I understand.
yeah.
One of the key things you actually touched with me earlier in our earlier discussions was sustainable leadership when you
Mm,
empower a woman.
mm.
Now, how much of that have you seen when you worked through these three strategies, that woman empowerment flowed in automatically, as opposed to when a man takes it over, there are some resistance, so to speak?
Yeah, I think when you empower women, you can actually see a great community ripple effect. We've seen
Hmm.
that in developing women as village leaders and as community and women-led community enterprises. Because when you educate a woman, you educate a family, and you empower an entire village. We have success stories around the world, from not just Asia, but Africa and Latin America. The poorest of the poor, just uplift the women, as simple as that.
Right. Attraction. Now, when you talked about these three areas of passion that you have, the traction that you put through, what was the outcome that you felt easiest to attain? Where did you find the most resistance?
The biggest resistance is patriarchy.
Yeah.
Worldwide, we have patriarchal societies where, well, you're of Kerala origin, so you come from matriarchal society. You're used to having women on top, women being the bosses, David.
I know.
We're in a minority leagues, unfortunately, around the world. So patriarchy is a very serious problem,
I
and
know.
male-dominated societies with cultural norms and harmful practices like female genital mutilation, child marriages, rearing its head everywhere. To oppress a woman is to quickly marry her off as a child and
Mm,
stop the education and get her pregnant and barefoot in the kitchen for the rest of her life.
yes.
It's ridiculous. So what we do is we work with the media. The media, like 10 News, is a very powerful
Platform.
transformative vehicle. You need to change the narrative. We really need to do that. We need to work with the workforce in terms of bosses, employers, to make sure that there is equal opportunity, equal pay. Women have equal access to finance. Making sure that sexual violence is nipped in the bud, because one of the ways to oppress women is to violate them sexually, and
Yes.
it's very serious in many countries. The statistics, like for example in Papua New Guinea, is like 1 in 3 women has been subjected to some form of sexual violence or other, and some of it is horrific. And the
Right.
other one is family. Work on the family. Encourage love and compassion and respect. So patriarchy is a very serious problem. The other big barrier is getting sustainable financing or economic sustainability of transformation projects. It's easy to get money to start a factory or to grow a business, but it's very difficult to do a project in the rural areas or to uplift, women, the rural poor, the disabled, or refugees. So there's always this struggle with getting fundraising and a reliance on volunteers. So what we want to see is a closer working relationship with governments who give out grants, with corporate philanthropic foundations who fund transformation projects, particularly to uplift poverty-stricken people. And we need to develop women and young people to be economically independent.
Right,
That is
right. And do you see there's a gap in that economic independence between an Asian-based community and that of the Western-based community? Is there a gap in that as
no,
to the youth, as to the youth? Sorry?
not really. The data emerging out of United States or Canada,
Right.
something you can see there's oppression and suppression of women, even in these so-called developed.
Oh, really? Wow.
Down in Australia, why with your Indigenous Aboriginal women?
Yes,
Girls
yes.
have to have big programs just to take care of the Aboriginal societies, and bring them on par. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, that is still a struggle here. I mean, they've been trying for a simple thing as a date change for the invasion of Australia is such a huge mammoth task here. But it'll take time for that to come true. But yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on in relation to the barriers and the resistance that you've encountered, how did you personally cope with it? I mean, there were issues and sometimes internal I can see the smile come out. Internal conflict that says, my God, how can I change this? How did you cope with situations like that?
You know what? I'm a firm believer in meditation.
Fabulous. You hit my soft spot.
I've actually undergone specific training.
Right.
I'm a proponent and firm believer in the art of living,
Yes.
which is a training. Sorry, I would call it life transformation program initiated by Sri Ravi Shankarji.
Yes.
And the art of living has elements of specific breathing techniques,
Yes.
meditation and exercises. I've also embraced Sadhguru's inner engineering program.
Right.
And I believe that when you manage yourself and your emotions and your feelings, thoughts and feelings, if you are in control of yourself, then there's nothing else that you need to worry about.
You know something, that's powerful, Anusha, because that's one of the closest things to my heart. You've just hit it. I would like to open up a little bit here on your personal daily rituals. Do you mind sharing what do you do on a regular basis to maintain that centeredness?
Well, I always start my day with prayer. And when I say prayer, it really doesn't matter what religion you are, because religion is an institution, an organization. I think it's mantra. It's I will center myself every morning. Just bring myself within and That first hour of the morning, sip my coffee and then go into meditative state and then sing songs of praise. I love to sing beautiful melodious songs of praise.
Right.
You can tell that I love singing. Full
Ah,
stop.
good.
Yeah. It's a form of de-stressing and joy. There's so much joy that comes out of
Exactly.
singing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then it's like Robin Sharma says, the 5 a.m. club or whatever you call it. I
Yes.
believe in that early morning fresh start. Well, we started the show at 6:30 a.m. Canadian time. There's no difficulty for me. I'm an early morning person. Morning
Right.
is the best time to plant the seeds of what you want to nurture for that day, what you
Right.
want to bring forth into this world. So that's what I do. And I set an intention.
Hmm.
Intentions are powerful. You set an intention for the day. What do you want to achieve? Create a list. I'm a firm believer in making lists, having a journal,
Fabulous.
putting my thoughts down and reviewing it at the end of the day. Every night is a time for introspection, for review and reflection on how the day went. And if you made some mistakes or you hurt some people, you have to ask for forgiveness. And you really have to also learn to forgive yourself, because I think I'm also a bit of a perfectionist. So I tend to be quite hard on my own self.
Right, right. You've just capped it. I don't know if I think you are aware. I launched my book on the 1st of January called I Excel Wired for Success,
Mhm. Yeah.
and 60% of that book is structured on performance excellence, productive performance excellence, and you've just hit certain key elements that we have covered in that. It's
Mm.
powerful because that is basically what helps a person to not just center himself but have clarity in thinking.
Mm.
Once you do get your clarity, decision making flows automatically,
Mhm.
and most don't realize that. And I can see that, when I first spoke with you on this particular session about a week ago, and even now, that's flowing through, and your calmness and your serenity is just oozing out, madam.
Yeah.
Good. Now, moving on from there, we want to touch on a topic called collaboration, because I think you obviously had to do a lot of collaborative
Yes.
work in all of your areas of work. What were the key areas that you had to work through to get effective collaboration?
First of all, I see collaborations as very powerful game changers, not something to be
Mm,
feared or to be stressed about. It can accelerate growth. It can
yes.
certainly help you to expand market territory and build market share. So it's critical. What is important for any collaboration to be successful is trust,
Yes.
cultivating trust. If you cannot trust people, how can you collaborate with them? So which means
Mm,
doing your due diligence, uh, always do some background checks, always do thorough research. I believe data is powerful. Find out what the strengths are, because if every one of us has strengths, David, and if you and I were to collaborate, we would really want to leverage on each other's strengths and build
yes.
a relationship. But for it to work, you need to have a sense of shared values,
Mm,
a common mission, a common goal. Goals are important. Collaborations is successful because you can save a lot of costs and have economies of scale rather than going alone. I think in the service sector, particularly, it is worth boosting collaboration, because those of us who are involved in services, we know that to have a global empire and to reach a biggest target market as possible is the way forward is collaboration. Like you see that in financial services and banking, in IT, in software, in big data management. I think also collaboration helps you to tap creativity and innovation, because sometimes we may not be innovative, we may be operational people. Some of us are very good at developing human beings, but we are not very good with systems and processes. So collaborations help that way. And certainly in event management, when you're doing large scale events and you
mm,
really want to cross the globe, like for example, even with this show that we are having on now. We have to use all available social media and outreach to attract our audience to come and join us. Right?
When you started working in collaborative manner with some of the leaders in different political scenes, how did you have the trigger of ensuring you were in sync with them? Did you have to adapt, or did you get them to adapt to your theme? What process did you
It
put in
works
place?
both ways.
Yes.
Like I said, you have to have trust and confidence first, because once you have built trust, and you are then open to sharing, right? You are willing to disclose information that otherwise you would not disclose to the other party. Um, Building relationships takes time, and it takes effort. And I think if you're working with governments and politicians, it's a slippery slope most of the time, because you don't know where you're going with them, particularly with politicians. I think that's a subject of another talk show. I could
I
do an
know.
entire talk show on how I've dealt with politicians and governments.
Share with us a case, a simple case of how you found through the process of collaboration, you overcame resistance to ensure the outcome was there in an effective manner.
All right. Okay, so if you a good scenario would be when you want to work in a local community, say like say you have an incident, say like a riot, okay, a riot, intercommunal clashes and a riot, because there have been ethnic genocide or something. It's happened in some of our Asian communities as well as African communities. So when you go in, you have to be very sensitive. You have to deal with local community leaders, like I said, patriarchal people. You'll have to deal with corrupt police. You'll have to deal with government officials who want to paint a rosy picture. We actually have to get them all around the discussion table. Very important, I always feel, is to make sure women get a seat at the table. That's why I'm all for women empowerment, because women are very, very sensitive to the feelings and on the ground, the sentiment on the ground.
Right.
So when you get the women to come out and tell what's really going on, they are more interested in having peace, in unity, in getting the community to work. So we will tell it like it is. People may not like it when women tell the truth, but you have to tell the truth. And the politicians will listen, because we are there to make sure the community works in harmony. So it's important to get everyone around the table, and everyone wants a success story. So,
Yes.
when you tell the politicians, this is going to help you to get re-elected. When you tell the police, this is going to help you manage the local community and your resources, and we are there to work with you, not to fight with you. They're happier. They know that we are there to work as a team. So that's really it.
Fabulous. As we go through this journey, change has been the underlying factor in all of this. How do you combat resistance to change? And some stories on that too, please.
Okay. Change actually has to happen on two levels. The first one is change from within, right? I said we have to be as they say, change happens from within, means that you have to walk your talk. So, and that means you have to show that you are yourself transformed. So it has to happen at an internal level, and it also has to happen at an external level, which means there are external factors that you have to deal with. I think for change to happen, it has to be a process where you achieve buy-in, get buy-in from people. And the only way, there are many ways in which you can get buy-in. First of all, one must be empathetic. Empathy has been underestimated around the world. But when you show people that you actually care, that you empathize with them, that you understand what they are going through, and that you want to take them on this journey where they get the best out of themselves, people will come along, David. I think you must have seen that in your
Yes,
transformative work.
very much so.
People want to know that you understand their concerns, that you can address their fears, that you can nurture their hopes, that you can build their dreams. That you're able to generate a clear vision and direction. A lot of people are lost. They want a roadmap. They
Mm,
want some timelines. You cannot talk about change without having timelines and structure. I'm all for that. Uh, Human beings are not that complicated if we put a roadmap that makes sense, and collaborate with them. Get them to be part of the process of change. It cannot be top down. No, a lot of organizations actually have struggled because it's enforced top down. It has to
mhm.
be bottom up. Particularly when I work in voluntary organizations with volunteers, it's not like employees. You can't fire them. You have to manage and
Work
work
with
with
them.
them.
Exactly.
It's so difficult, paying them. You can't get rid of them. You have to make sure that they are in tune. So celebrate success. That is a great way, David. Every step of a process of change, celebrate it. When you see signs of progress, any kind of achievement is worthy of celebration. Even in the COVID fight, for example, if everyone's wearing masks, I mean, just jump up and celebrate that you walk in the room and everybody wore masks and no one resisted and went around saying, hello, I'm not getting COVID, I'm not wearing a mask. It's the simple things like this, right? And be prepared to modify, adapt, and refine whatever you do. It's okay to make mistakes. Just be prepared to learn and grow. I think most people are afraid to make mistakes. I think that is sad because mistakes are the way in which we learn and grow. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. Um, uh, Adding to that, if you can just inculcate a story on your NGO experience where change was a resistance initially and how you combated that.
Okay. Uh, one maybe one example would be in terms of the sort of projects or programs we wanted to do. You see, in the volunteer world, it's very easy for us to come together just to do a fundraising event, a gala
Mhm.
dinner, a walkathon or something, marathon, just collect money and just write checks and give money away in charity. Loads of civil society organizations around the world do that. Or it's very easy to just carry placards and march through the streets and expect change to happen. Now, when
Right.
you actually want to do grassroots programs, like actually go down to the ground and help to build toilets in schools in Pakistan, say, so that girls can get an education, because that's a serious problem. One of the ways to prevent a girl getting educated in Pakistan is not to have toilets in schools, because then girls don't go to schools, because girls need to go to toilets. They can't do stuff in the open, right? So
Yes.
there's resistance. You have to go and build toilets. You have to go and help women to build wells so that they don't have to keep walking miles to the river to carry water. Or you need to get people to put solar on their roofs, or have photovoltaic cells in their little village homes in Cambodia, so that children don't become street kids and can do their homework at night when it gets dark. But
Mhm.
for volunteers to do this sort of work, it's like they think it's hardship. Oh my God, I have to go out there. So what we do is that we actually we create documentaries, videos. When they see that we are actually bringing those stories alive, they are motivated, because they know, hey, we are not these invisible people in the background doing stuff no one knows about. And then when we share it on social media, and then we get young people volunteering, willing to come out as what we call volunteerism, because young people like to travel. Of course, now with COVID, nobody can travel
Exactly.
anywhere. But back in the day when we could still travel, young people would be motivated to go to some of these poorest, remote parts of the world and just volunteer. So when they see young people coming forward and volunteering, then it motivates the older members to be rejuvenated. So that was the push factor, really.
That was a powerful aspect, because I had personally experienced that aspect working with an NGO here, where we were coaching Pan India, the leadership. What this organization did was went to corporate India and selected different organizations to contribute either 1, 2, 5, or 10 of their employees on a weekly basis to go and re-educate the parents, not in the villages, but in the tribal communities in India. Okay. And in so doing, it was a huge task. So I had to go through the process of training these leaders, we call them little leaders, to go out, and they had to have the nuances of understanding how the parents would react, because most parents in the tribal units wanted their kids to be at home so they could do the farming as opposed to go to school. Okay, so there was a conflict, and so that conflict was addressed in such a way that they eventually relented to allowing the boy baby or the boy child to go to school, but kept the woman, the girl child, to stay at home. And it took another process of convincing to get that. So that resistance was huge, and it took us close to about, I think, 18 months to transform that. And this is where most people don't realize the implications of how you need to understand the nuances of what is required from both